Anderson Nyaga has been physically disabled for 15 years. He is an online marketer who lives and works in the county of Embu. He shares with this court his journey as a person with disability. Ashura Michael is deaf and is a human rights and gender inclusion advocate. She has served as the Secretary General of the Kenya National Association of the Deaf's Youth Section, as well as the Youth Fellow of the International Disability Alliance. She speaks to this court on her experience and that of other PWDs. David Ole Sankok is a Member of Parliament at the East Africa Legislative Assembly. He is physically disabled and served as a nominated member of the National Assembly representing persons with disabilities. He's also served as the chairman of the National Council of People with Disabilities between 2014 and 2017. His story and insights before this court. Harun Hassan is the Executive Director of the National Council for Persons with Disabilities. Some years back, he was in a car crash which left him disabled. He shares insights as state agency position on the journey to inclusion and mainstreaming PWDs and their plight. My lords and ladyships, your court is in session. News Court, the court of public interest, prosecuting matters that matter to you. I'm Smriti Vidyarthi, standing in for Dan Mwangi in leading the prosecution of the matters before you. Your Honour, many are the times a lot is said in regard to giving support and accommodating the unique needs of persons with disabilities. Yes, a lot is said, but is enough done? Does the talk, the pronouncements, the proposals, and so on and so forth bring forth commensurate fruits? Do those who have been termed differently abled enjoy the tangible fruit of all the discoveries and discourse? Let's prosecute. This court now invites the opening submissions. Ken Nyaga takes the floor.
Justice Wanjiko, the reality of many persons living with disability is not so encouraging, and they say it inspires little hope for them. My submission to this honorable court.
One of the biggest challenge we have here is physical accessibility of public amenities. We also encounter challenges in political, accommodation. When it comes to healthcare, it's not yet good, because those of us, our brother and sister who live with conditions like cerebral palsy and albinism, who need very expensive drugs, cannot access them in public hospitals. Here in Embu County, they have to get them from their pockets. Besides grappling with everyday challenges of the normal cost of living that has hit Kenyans, persons with disability now, they live on an extra budget of taking care of their health. When it comes to education, special facilities for our blind brothers and sisters to go about their education, it's a problem. Those who are deaf, it's a problem. The employers are shy of employing persons with disabilities because joining their team comes at a cost. The conversation we are hoping is going to lead to inclusion that is done from a policy point of view, not this kind of tokenism inclusion. Persons with disabilities have to be brought to the decision-making tables for all these problems to go. When we talk about accessibility, for example, here in Embu County, I remember seeking services in one of the banks, and the bank does not have an operational ramp. And when I spoke to the manager told me that they did not envision a type of my client, so they are going to readjust. But a few months or almost a year down the line, they have done nothing. For persons living with disability, the thing I would want to encourage you is that life is going to become better. Of course, we've had those challenges for a long time. Before then, we had times when rights of persons with disability meant nothing to the society and the government. But let's hold on there. Things seems to be working from the county level and nationally. Things are looking good for persons with disability.
Nothing further from me, my lords and ladyships. I rest.
This court now invites Brian Mushiri to make his submissions.
Your Honor, in the spirit of getting to appreciate the experiences firsthand, it is important we get submissions of another person with disability. We now welcome Ashura Michael with Flora Atieno as the sign language interpreter. From the start, just to get to understand your day-to-day operations, how is it every day?
Honestly, we go about our normal duties, but of course with barriers. If we have a society that is free of barriers, then our lives will be better. But for now, I cannot say that we live a better life because of the barriers that we go through and the challenges that we go through on a daily basis.
Are there organizations that you go in and are not friendly to you and persons like yourself?
Yes. Right from our roads, from our transport system, communication, all of these are the challenges we go through, not just the building. Sometimes people forget that some disabilities are visible, but some are not visible. And those, they have the different needs. So when the needs are not met, then it becomes a challenge. We cannot perform, especially when it comes to communication. Because the communication is the means of everything. The world is a better place because of communication. But when there's no communication, there's no information, then our life is in the dark.
From where you sit, what appeals do people like you make towards the government of Kenya?
Wow, this came at the perfect time. As this month, we are celebrating International Deaf Awareness Week. And the theme is a world where deaf people can sign everywhere, anywhere. And now, this means we have in Parliament, through Honorable Umi, we have a sign language bill. This, if it goes through, we'll have a commission of sign language who will be responsible to guide also in interpretation too. And remember also, we talk about Vision 2030, Africa Agenda. We have a disability protocol, and also our Constitution, specifically Article 54. You cannot implement if some section of persons are left behind, and that's the deaf community.
Just to get to understand, on the other side of the spectrum, are there some advantages that you've seen that you've faced as a person with disability?
If you look at our Constitution, it's an amazing document, which many countries doesn't recognize even sign language. Our country has recognized sign language in our Constitution as a third language. This is very important for us. We have the National Council for Persons with Disabilities that is in place. We have the AGPO, 30% of persons with disability participate. And with this government, recruitment of persons with disability at a job level, then that's on, we've really failed. Because we've actually seen in the nominations or in the appointments, we've not met the 5% threshold. But even in the private sector.
Your final remarks on this one?
I'll take this opportunity to tell the world, especially Kenyans, it doesn't matter the disability which we have, but let's change our attitude. Change your attitude, and then look at me, at my ability and not my disability. And then we can make the world a better place for all of us. And the government of Kenya, please support the Kenyan Sign Language Bill 2020, and also with amendments on the Act. And make sure this time, let's achieve the 5% opportunity of persons with disabilities so that we can change the lives and live together to achieve a better Kenya where all of us want to live. We cannot achieve all this without including persons with disabilities. Thank you very much.
That's it for me, Your Honor. Much obliged.
My lords, ladyships, for the avoidance of doubt and assumption, We table before this Honourable Court some insights and data on the matter before it. According to the World Health Organization, disability has 3 dimensions: impairment, activity limitation, and participation restrictions. Disability can affect a person's vision, movement, thinking, and memory, as well as learning, communicating, hearing, and their mental health and social relationships. Disability can be related to conditions that were present at birth or associated with developmental conditions apparent during childhood. They can also be related to an injury, such as traumatic brain injury or spinal cord injury, or associated with a long-standing condition such as diabetes. Disability can also be progressive. Numerous challenges arise for people with disability, and some of them include health inequity, lack of education, inaccessible transportation, and the challenge of stigma. In Kenya, the national government is obliged to, among others, develop policies for persons with disabilities, as well as provide usable infrastructure, promote inclusion, and allocate resources. Your Honour, again, for the avoidance of doubt, this court must be seized of the fact that it is not all gloom for the persons with disability. Some have made great strides and enjoy privileged platforms. This court now invites to the dock David Sankok. How are you differently abled?
I became a person with disability through a doctor's injection at the age of 12. My aspiration was, when I grow up after circumcision, I'll be a Moran, but that was not to be, because at the age of 12, I got pneumonia. I was taken to hospital. At midnight, the doctor was a bit asleep. He was waking up. When he woke up, I think 5 times, I don't know what happened. He injected me, and I became well of pneumonia, but the following day my right leg was paralyzed. From that, then my ambition had to change, because I cannot trade. I cannot look after livestock. So I had to concentrate on studies, especially to go and study at least medicine to know what happened.
Where did you find your support system?
First of all, from my parents. They encouraged me to go to school and to be serious. I now go to interact better with my schoolmates. And that is why when I became the chairman of National Council for Persons with Disability, I wanted us to change the narrative from the sympathy model, the charity model of persons with disability, to the opportunity model, to the symbiotic model. I wanted to change special schools to integrated education, because I was in an integrated system of education. I was in the school for everybody. There was a friend of mine. He knew I cannot carry buckets of water because of my physical disability. But when I sit down, I can wash clothes. So he will go and carry the water, bring the water to me, and give me all the clothes. The only problem is that he used to bring all, and I like all. So I used to wash. So we learn how to survive as a society, even if I'm a person with disability, but I'm able differently.
In your view, what more needs to be done in Kenya to support people with disability?
The first thing is you, the people of the media, together with our leaders. Let us first of all educate the community and educate persons with disability themselves. By educating persons with disability, we have to tell them the truth, that seek opportunity is not sympathy, that disability is not a qualification. For you to be able to be employed, for you to be able to be nominated, you must first of all have the requisite qualification for whatever that is needed. The other thing is for the society to take us not as disabled, but as people who are able differently. Give us an opportunity. I can give you an example. Yes, you had Ashura Michael here. She may not be a journalist like you or a news anchor because of the disability, the challenges. But certainly there's something they can do.
What about the basics, the everyday basics that perhaps frustrate the lives of people with disabilities? For example, access to buildings, or smooth pavements along the road to allow wheelchairs to move smoothly. What is your take on that?
Now that one is for the government. The first thing that we did when I was the chairman, National Council for Persons with Disability, is to try and mitigate the effect or challenges that come with disability. One of them is that I buy my crutches. These are my legs. You did not buy your legs. So I don't pay taxes as a person with disability, so that I can use that tax to buy the legs that I require daily. I also import a car duty free, because a car for me is a necessity, is not a luxury, is a basic need. We have also advocated for all buildings, including NTV, Nation Center, being accessible to persons with disability. I came and I was taken to where I can access the lift very fast and come up all to the studio without any effect. Unfortunately, in 2015, we were supposed to have 100% accessibility to buildings and accessibility to the transport sector. As the chairman of National Council for Persons with Disability that time, I will have taken so many buildings to court. I will have closed so many circles of matatus, but I have also to balance between scaring away investors and implementing what need to be done.
But why wasn't it done?
Because the transport sector is and the built environment is mostly in the hands of private sector in Kenya, unlike in the West, where the transport sector is mainly in the hands of the government. The only thing that is in the hands of the government is SGR, which is 100% accessible. So now scaring away these investors who are employing hundreds of jobless youth, I have to balance. So what we did was first to go to where architects and civil engineers are trained, so that we can introduce a unit, a study unit, in the importance of accessibility to the environment.
If you were to rate where Kenya stands in terms of support for persons with disability, between 1 to 10, with 1 being the poorest and 10 being the best, how would you rate Kenya?
8.5.
8.5.
And I have no apologies to make, because in Africa, we were, before 2013, we were actually not rated at all. But now we are number 1. In the world globally, we are almost number 15, because of what we have given persons with disability as a government of Kenya that is not given elsewhere in the world. Again, here in Kenya, persons with disability access to government contracts through what we call AGPO, access to government procurement opportunities. There is a lot that we have achieved apart from what is in the hands of the private sector, like accessibility.
The last census gave people with albinism to be 9,729. So if you only cover 3,000, where are the 6,000 benefiting from? And you can hear even from my colleagues here, they don't actually get opportunities for employment. So we still have a long way for people with albinism to be accepted. If these parents of the young children here still find it difficult to get employment, to be accepted by their husbands, to be accepted by their families, we have made progress, because at least there's something to talk about it. The government allocates about 100 million for everything to do with albinism, awareness creation, skin cancer treatment, protective clothing, and also supporting the National Council in its administrative role.
Justice Wanjiku, this court will now hear the submissions of the state from the Executive Director of the National Council for Persons with Disabilities, Harun Hassan.
Disability is not a function of national government or county government. It's a business of everybody. And one of the key things that we have discussed with the county government is issue of data. Do we have accurate data for purpose of planning in this country? So we urge county government to come up with laws and policies, to ensure that the issue is not just for PR, it's not just for, but I must commend some counties that have done very well. Even issue of disability, more than 10 or 20 years ago, we are not openly talk about it as a right like we are doing right now. Now it is a right, because even, like ministries, department and agency, through performance contracting mechanism, they report to the National Council the extent of disability compliance. It's a right, you see. Now we are pushing that to the counties now.
Disability mainstreaming. The value you assign is a sign of the language you sign, that of humanity. or that of checking a box, something you sign on this? Do you co-sign, or are you on a different tangent, choosing the opposite over the adjacent? Disability is not a doomed sentence. We need to see it with a renewed essence through new lenses until the skew lessens. For instance, have you provided a ramp for wheelchairs? Or do you lack the will? Chair, CEO, minister? Is your talk to support real, or are you just really sinister? Have you shielded those around you from mental breakdowns? Or will you be found wanting if we did a shakedown? Until everyone who needs to do enough does enough, many will be stuck in a rut, have it rough, ugly, tough, hardly laugh. This is tragic stuff, all the big talk. They will term it bluff. Your house of promises will crumble when the big bad wolf will huff and puff. Do you, as an employer, do your part for your staff? Or is their hunger for inclusivity badly starved? Maybe we should be seeing your hands in cuffs. Your car may have a cute, relevant bumper sticker, but are your actions drivers of ramped up stigma? Do your part in aiding the integration in operations include those with disabilities in your consultations? This is not about checking a box, but improving lives. Sadly, some are simply proving lies. Disability is not inability. This may have been said over and over, but it is still the solid truth, over and over, and at this point, we remind you be the judge. News Court is over.